Welcome back to Pixel Project Radio, the video game discussions podcast where we do deep dives and analyze all of our favorite games and some of yours too. My name is Rick, and today we abandon all subtlety because we are talking about Death Stranding, Kojima's epic game, some might say, from 2019. Just recently got a sequel put out at the time of recording. Exciting times to be talking Kojima, and I am looking forward to talking about it today. Up top, I've got to thank the patrons as always. The patrons are a wonderful group of folks that believe in the show and help keep things moving along here. If you love the work that we do and want to support, you can check out patreon.com/pixelprojectradio. You can see all of the stuff we've got going on over there. This month's episode is on Stellar Blade, which I'm really looking forward to. Today, to join me on Death Stranding and talk about connection and BBs and the beach and questionable dialogue, I'm joined by two former guests that haven't been on the show in a minute. The two hosts of the Friday Night Gamecast. We've got Will and we've got Nick. Nick and Will. Doesn't matter how you slice it, they're still the same two fine fellas. How you guys doing today?
Well, doing well. Glad to be back on here. Like I said, it's been a long time coming, but it fits like a glove. It's like we're back home. We appreciate it, Rick.
Yeah, Rick, it's been a minute since we've been on. I think I've been on a little more recently than Will when I joined you for Pentiment, but I am incredibly excited to jump on the show with you. It's been a long time coming, so thank you again for having us back. Absolutely. We were going to hold off until Hades 2, but at this point, I don't even know when that's going to come out, and I don't really want to jump in until it's like a full release, but I will be playing that game. Very excited for it. But today, we're talking Death Stranding. If you're a new listener, which you might be considering how big of a game Death Stranding is and the new release, first of all, welcome. Glad that you're here, and we hope that you love the show today. How this show works is we begin by talking about high-level things in the preamble discussion. We're talking about development, mechanics, sound design, all of that stuff, high-level thought. Afterwards, we go into a narrative analysis. We break the story down beat by beat. We analyze the writing, the narrative arc, all of that. No spoilers until we get there. So if you haven't played Death Stranding, and I know there are some of you out there because I am you, if you haven't played yet, we will not spoil anything until we get into the spoiler discussion. Episode 5 won't be spoiled in 4, 3, 2, or 1. The ending won't be spoiled until we get there, etc. So you plenty of opportunities to jump off. Speaking of Death Stranding, let's talk a little bit about overall thoughts and personal histories. So I'm going to kick it to one of you. Either of you can go first. What's your history with Death Stranding? Did you play it when it first came out? History with Kojima, if you're a passionate fan. How's it going? What are you thinking? What are your thoughts on Death Stranding and Kojima?
Well, I'll go ahead and take it here, Will. So for me, Death Stranding came at a very interesting time. Obviously, interesting for everyone, considering 4 months from then we would be going through unprecedented worldwide pandemic that kept us all shut inside our homes for multiple weeks, if not more, relying on our different versions of porters to get us DoorDash and pizzas and Amazon Prime, et cetera, into our man-made bunkers. So that was a really fun time for a lot of people, I'm sure. If you're listening, I'm sure you were through that, and it was fantastic for you. For me personally, 2019 brought a lot of news. I was getting into my very first house with my wife, so that was a really big start for us, kind of beginning that build of a family, potentially. I had a job that I had recently switched over into a new role, so I had been working in that role for the better part of 6 to 8 months, and things were feeling pretty good until literally a week or so before the house got closed on. I got a lovely notice to come into the office. And then as I was in there, I was told that my position was being deleted, for lack of a better term.
Eliminated.
And I no longer had a job. So you can you can imagine rather, my fear, frightenness, displeasure, all of that emotion kind of balled in together right before getting into a house with my wife, who we now had to pivot and figure out all these different things from the lenders and the realtor and the people we were working with. It all worked out. I'm still in that house now, 6 years later, so things are running pretty smooth. That being said, it was a really scary, horrible time for me and for my family initially, and while working through that, as well as getting into unemployment for the first time, this game came out, and it was probably one of those things that kept me going during that time. I got to at night after, put in a couple of job applications here and there, truck my way through Death Stranding, which I had rented at the time from a Redbox.
Oh, wow.
If you know what Redbox is, I'm telling you right now, you need to go ahead and take some Advil for your back pain because you have to be at least 30. But that's how I got it. I played through it in roughly a week to 2 weeks as far as renting it from there. And not to bury the lead, but it was a time that I greatly enjoyed. It was something that brought me a lot of, not quite happiness, but it's like I understood what was going on during the game and the sadder, somber moments, as well as when the people were kind of getting connected, since it was, for me, a complete disconnection from, hey, I no longer have my coworkers, which I thoroughly enjoyed working with. A lot of my friends come from work as well, so while I could meet them on the weekends, during the days, I was effectively alone for a number of months. So I was something that I connected to, pun not intended, with that connection premise during Death Stranding. So all that to say, it's a game that really touched me, and it really caught me at a very emotionally vulnerable time in my life, and I appreciate that it was there for that.
How about you, Nick? Hopefully a little bit of a more positive story. I'm sorry to hear about the job, man. I'm glad that things turned out well, but
yeah, I didn't quite know the full details around that, so that was a first for me in terms of the full picture on that story. But that's cool. Yeah, the red box and everything involved with that. That's such a unique thing. Death Stranding came out, in 2020, and during this time, I mean, as everybody, my experience with COVID was honestly okay. As somebody who is very introverted and spends a lot of time generally inside, as it is, especially with gaming being my primary hobby, and being an introvert and not necessarily needing a lot of connection with other people, and that's going to come back around later, I didn't really suffer as much as potentially maybe my co-host when he had to go through lockdown, because he's such a gregarious and extroverted, wonderful person. But I was also in a new relationship right when everything happened, when everything locked up. And then not only that, but also really, really like work was insane. I was actually working with Will's wife at the time at the company we were at together. And I was on the front line of leave of absence and terminations. And not only was I handling people dying, from COVID and coming out, and this is not to delve too deep in that, but I do think it's relevant. The minuscule amount of time I did have to play in 2020, I was really focused on things like I was focused on other games, and it was also one of those things where, in my mind, prior to getting to this point in the podcast, Kojima's earlier properties with Metal Gear had been a huge blind spot. There's still a huge blind spot to this day. To set the tone for everybody listening to this episode, I have never played a Metal Gear game. So I am completely unaware of Kojima and his history, other than the fact that he is an iconic name in the franchise. Like, nobody who is aware of games doesn't know who Kojima, or I don't know if that lines up right, but everybody knows Kojima and his work. They're familiar with Metal Gear Solid and the impact that that's had on the game industry. It's just not something that's ever really called out to me, because it was really, honestly, before my time, and I wasn't aware of / playing it during the PS2, Xbox 360 era, so I just didn't have as much exposure to those titles. But yeah, so this was my very first Hideo Kojima game. Honestly, I think that in terms of the enjoyment levels, I don't know, there's a very honest conversation that we could have potentially on the show about whether or not a game should be fun, or whether or not you should enjoy your time playing it. I will say this: I have not been more conflicted about a video game experience, I think, the entire time I've been doing content. Generally, for me, I am very lenient. I'm not lenient, but like, I enjoy so many different types of games. I am willing to engage with and enjoy experiences that I even may not necessarily like gravitate towards, but also as soon as I lock into that, I can see the vision and I enjoy it. This time, I am so torn in between the things that I really didn't like about Death Stranding combined with the things that I really, really did. And those two, like, the components of that are on such opposite ends of the spectrum that I am struggling to make it make sense in my mind in terms of like where my headspace at and how I feel about this game. But I will say that this is a wholly unique game, and I think that it's really important that for anybody who wants to enjoy kind of more engaging or difficult media, This is an interesting game for folks to play out there, and I wouldn't say that it's a must play for anyone. I feel like Death Stranding is definitely something that you can leave on your back catalog and not jump into if it's not something that you're really willing to, jump into both with both feet. But yeah, I think that it's a really complex game. So to that end, I'm really excited to see what you think, Rick, and delve into it a little bit more on the show.
We'll come back to that idea. Nick, you said that you haven't played any Kojima before. What about you, Will? Are you also a first-time Kojima player, or are you a fan of the Metal Gear series?
Now, I am a fan of the Metal Gear series, but I hadn't truly beaten any before this. So I played a good amount of 2. I played a little bit of 3. Wish I'd gotten to 4. And then 5 is too scary. Like, it's just too big. I look at the amount of time it would take to beat that game, and I'm always like, maybe in 3 years. So it's a series that I've probably researched to death, just like any other kind of entertainment that I haven't necessarily gotten to, but I know I'll enjoy. I spoil myself wholeheartedly, and I do deep dives into it. So I know quite a bit about the entire Metal Gear series as a whole. But yeah, this is my first A to Z beaten Kojima game.
Okay, so you were going to have more history with Kojima the man and his vision, his creative aesthetics than either Nick or myself. I also have never played any Kojima game. I started Metal Gear 1, a Metal Gear Solid 1. I just had too much going on at the time. So this is my first time playing Death Stranding for this episode, for this show. First Kojima game as well. And to that end, I wanted to just set some expectations up top. Because it seems like the two of us, me and Nick, do not have a history and a knowledge of Kojima the man. And Will, it sounds like you do, to some extent. I did want to sort of preface by saying, if you're looking for somebody or some episode to discuss his evolution and how this work sort of evolved and bloomed out of design aesthetics and choices and decisions from the Metal Gear games, this is maybe not the right episode for you. In some ways, it feels very strange tackling a game by somebody like Kojima that is such a well-known force in the industry as somebody that is so fresh to him and to his franchises. You could go onto YouTube and find any number of long essays or podcast episodes or whatever from folks that have been playing this since the early days, PS1 and even prior. So in that way, I feel a little bit reticent to even cover this game. But at the same time, there is value in fresh opinions and having fresh takes from left field or from folks that are otherwise, untainted by the shadow of Bob Dylan, as I like to say, the specter of Bob Dylan, the influence of the reputation that precedes him. So to that end, you're going to get some fresh thoughts. If that's what you're looking for, then this might be the show for you. Will, we might lean on you a little bit for any previous Kojima knowledge, but, I want to go back to what you were saying, Nick, about feeling conflicted with this game. I, too, feel extremely conflicted, very, very heavily mixed feelings on the subject matter, and especially my feelings on the writing aren't mixed. Here's the thing. I'm hesitant to speak too much on Kojima, obviously, but so far to me, I know his reputation. He's an auteur, he's a genius, and we're going to talk more about that here in a second. I was expecting a lot, and, that is not a fallacy, but that is a problem with anything that has a reputation like this. Undertale suffered a similar fate. Whenever, young kids are coming up and hearing about Metallica, and they first listen to it, that happens there too. Whenever you have these expectations set, it can negatively impact your experience. Playing through this game, from what I've seen so far, and I am open to being wrong as we go through the next 2 episodes, it feels to me like this is directed by somebody that is an amateur film lover, that has somewhat higher than average sensibilities when it comes to cinemacism and cinematography, but is otherwise just an amateur film lover with endless resources, which is kind of what he is. He's a self-described film lover with just a lot of money to throw at this. I don't see the genius yet. Again, open to being wrong. I think the themes of this game, the bones that make up the themes that make up the bones, is a very cool idea. I think exploring the idea of connection, the notion of connection in a world that so heavily encourages seclusion, like the one in which we live, is important. But, at this time, I don't know that I trust him and his team, important to note that, to see through what's going on, especially with the writing. It is extremely clumsy and ham-fisted. It's so afraid that you as the viewer are just not getting what they're trying to put down. They so desperately want you to see the clever little boys and girls that they are. It makes me think of that meme. Like, I know writers that use subtext and they're all cowards. That's what I think of half the time when I'm playing this game. But again, there are positive aspects of playing this that are genuinely at times like they catch your breath a little. They give you that little hitch in your throat, and it's like, you're playing something unique. Let's get into it. So just some high-level stats. This was released in November of 2019 for the PS4, right before COVID started, or I should say right before lockdown started. Came to PC in July the following year. PS5 came in 2021 in September, and it came to Xbox this past November 2024. You can find the full credits on the IMDb on the wiki, or you can beat the game, but of note, developed obviously by Kojima Productions, published by Sony Interactive Entertainment and 505 Games. Directed, of course, by Kojima, who also has a producer, designer, and writer credit. Art, credited to Yoji Shinkawa. Additional writing credits alongside of Kojima go to Kenji Yano and Shuyo Murata. Composed by Ludwig Forssell. Forssell, I was completely unfamiliar with this name. It looks like, according to his IMDb page, also composed for PT, the movie Bell, and the movie Boy Kills World. Not super familiar with any of that. I played through PT, but that's only 45 minutes?
Yeah, something like that.
I've seen the poster for Bell, I feel like many a time scrolling through streaming services, but I haven't actually watched it myself.
I want to touch on Kojima the auteur for a second. And again, I'm coming at this as somebody that's not steeped in the Kojima lore, in the Kojima universe. It seems to me that when folks talk about any of his works, Metal Gear Solid, 1 through 5, Metal Gear Rising, Policenauts, Death Stranding, obviously, they always speak as if Kojima is working in a vacuum. Kojima's writing, Kojima's vision, Kojima. I know this is probably common knowledge, but I want to just say up front, we know that he's working with a lot of other talented folks. And that kind of rhetoric, of claiming, of giving all the credit to the quote-unquote auteur is a little harmful. One, because, think about auteurs that genuinely do the bulk of the work. I'm thinking like Austin Jorgensen for Lisa the Painful. I'm thinking of Toby Fox for Undertale and Deltarune. People that do the large bulk of the work and maybe work with one or two other folks. But Toby Fox and Jorgensen, they composed, they wrote, they did the programming, they did art, they did the writing. Referring to Kojima as an auteur and like Kojima's work as his own, in a way, does diminish their efforts. And I don't love that. It also, obviously, doesn't give credit to the programmers and the writers, the composers, and the scene directors, the blocking directors that work with Kojima, right? My understanding is a shallow and amateur one, is that directors, direct. They give notes. Mm-hmm. They sort of are the creative oversight, and they explain what they want. And then, the composer takes that into account. The scenic director takes that into account. The actors take that into account. Ultimately, Kojima might, give notes and say, this needs to be a little more like this. This zig needs to zag a little bit more. But we've got to give credit to the people that are actually doing the work, too. That's just a little bugbear of mine. It bugs me whenever people talk about auteurs in this way. Just wanted to say it up front. I think it's important.
Yeah, definitely it needs to. And that's why I appreciate, podcasts like this, ours, other ones, we definitely go out of our way to be like, this person did the art, this person did the music, this person did that, because it is a group effort, especially for most video games, especially ones of this AAA magnitude. It takes a lot of hands to kind of get things moving. It doesn't bug me, but I do appreciate when we get the chance to put that spotlight on people that make these games click, because you take out the music and it's a completely different game. You replace the artist You take out the art that way, it's a completely different game. So it takes a lot of different hands, and it takes a lot of things moving in the right way for it to turn out the way it does, which is probably why for something like this or Metal Gear Solid, a lot of people look at Kojima and his kind of body of work, because as you mentioned, it's that direction. Kojima has, over his time, been effectively given a blank check whenever he's making a game nowadays. You know, you get that kind of unrestricted oversight. When this game came out 2019 and Sony bought it to be an exclusive, they pretty much gave him a bag of money, and then they let him work with the developers of their other solo game, Horizon Zero Dawn. They said, hey, can they use your engine so they can make this game, because they just made a completely new yep. And then they went ahead and made Death Stranding. So I guess that's what you get when you kind of have that time and that tenure in, and then your ability to see your unfettered vision all the way through. So I think that's why people kind of tap him as saying he's gotten so big, he can effectively do what he wants. Very much like and I'm going to compare people, and I don't want to say because this person is like that, but just in a different vein. We all know Nolan with his movies. At this point, Nolan's so big, he can make whatever he wants to. They did Inception, and now you get to make Tenet, and then no one's going to tell him no. You know, you have the big enough star power to kind of do what you want and make that your vision.
Yeah, and I mean, to piggyback off of that, yeah, and I think it's very prevalent when we talk about auteurism in games and juxtaposed against auteurism in film as well. I mean, it's the same conversation that Rick was having about like giving credit where credit is due, where it's like a Kojima game was not made only by Kojima. And this is something that I feel like we talked about very recently, Will, in terms of like how many people are involved in the process of making games and everything that goes into, you know, what we work on. It's like, it's almost as if people are going to look at the body of work of Denis Villeneuve, like from the recent Dune Part 1 and Part 2 entries, or Enemy, and say, oh my God, he's the one that makes all of these movies amazing, without talking about Greg Fraser as a cinematographer and Hans Zimmer as composers. Like, without, of course, someone at the helm to say, this is the vision that I have for a piece of work, and then giving the direction to extremely talented specialists who can make that happen, like Yoji Shinkawa, you know, making the absolute just incredible, like bar none, like one of the most beautiful art designs in a game that I've ever seen, one of the most, you know, interesting and specific and just, I don't know, esoteric art that I've seen on a show. Like, these are the things that we notice when we watch games like this. And I think where we get in trouble with auteurism is when we attribute it to, and something that has frustrated me with the air, with the sentiment around Kojima, is that everybody, you were saying earlier, Rick, is like, when people talk about Kojima, for me, it's almost like people talk about him as if he's in the room watching them talk about him. It's like people are scared to say anything negative whatsoever about the Metal Gear series, or I have only ever heard like just glowing reverence for this man in the games that he does. And I will say this, something about Kojima that really strikes me is the fact that he has such a strong personality. He has an incredible media presence on the internet. I've followed him on Twitter and Instagram for years, and it is genuinely a delight to follow him and just see the silly, goofy things that he posts, or what movies he's watching, or what music that he's listening to. Obviously, with a lot of the lead up to Death Stranding 2, that, as Rick said, is out as of this recording. He was posting a lot of really interesting things in his collaborations with stars. And I think, like, when it comes down to my assessment of what his involvement and his inclusion in the work is the fact that he has a really strong, like, heavy, and you'll see it in the credits, heavy presence in the writing, and a heavy presence in the actual direction and the notes that they're giving actors. I imagine that he is there in the actual VO booth, as well as when they are doing the scans and they're actually like taking the live recordings of the blocking whenever they're, I don't know the terminology that's involved with it, but when they're shooting scenes, he's there in the room with them.
There's a great interview with Norman Reedus where he's talking about being directed by Kojima, who was, working with them. And he says that, Kojima will just say, okay, now pick up the baby and cry. And then just stare at him. And it'll point up and be like, yep, because of the whale. And Norman Reedus is like, I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't know what this means.
And he's like, I trust you, but I have no idea what the fuck we're talking about.
Right.
And It's something that I will say that I think I'm talking about now, but will continue to come up later, is that I'd be really, really curious to see what playing this game in Japanese, like English subtitles with a Japanese translation, would be like. Because legitimately, some of the dialogue in this game is so ridiculous and asinine that I'm like, there must be, I'm begging for the prospect that something has been lost in translation, that he meant one thing and the writers and the translators completely got it wrong and they said something else. I don't imagine that is because of the amount of budget. So I mean, you're shaking your head. Well, I imagine you think this is right.
That's just Kojima.
It's just
baby.
Kojima.
That's what he does.
Okay. You know,
he be saying wild shit sometimes,
which is fair. It's just that like we'll get into it more, but I just think that something about this game that is so interesting and unique is the fact that there are legitimately times where I'm watching these scenes play out and I'm watching the direction of these actors, and it's something that I really care about because I came into it really, really wanting to love this game. And some of these scenes are just effervescent and beautiful and well performed and well lit, and the shots and the angles have that making of a Hollywood director. And then sometimes I'm grabbing my head and I'm just like, I'm visibly angry. I'm standing up on my couch and I'm throwing my controller down. I'm like, what did I just watch? Why am I giving this so much time in my life to experience? So
yeah, the writing far and away is what makes this feel the most amateurish, the most film, again, like film buff, that from college, that just has endless money that can make this. Like the dialogue is where that comes through the most. And we'll talk about that once we get farther in. To move out of development a little bit, this was Kojima Productions' first game after transitioning to becoming an independent developer in 2015, after that infamous situation with Konami that to this day, I think we don't really know exactly what happened. Like all that's confidential, right? Like I'm understanding that correctly, right?
Mostly like the he said, she said type of situation. I don't even think, to my knowledge, which I haven't done a ton of background as far as like Kojima talking about it himself. But I mean, I don't even think he's really given the full details, if he ever will at all. But yeah, it's just a sour relationship after so many years. Yeah, it kind of not ruined a franchise because you have Delta coming out pretty soon this year, so we'll see how that goes. But definitely altered the trajectory of it forever.
So they partnered with Sony straight away because of the reputation, and they announced a PS exclusive title, first Strand type game, Death Stranding, was revealed at E3 the following year in 2016. Tons of famous talent, voice actors, yes, but also movie stars in this. Kojima is obsessed with working with film actors to the point of snubbing folks like David Hayter to get bigger names. I am familiar with that fiasco.
That's crazy.
But,
I didn't know that. You're
going to see Norman Reedus, Tommy Earl Jenkins, Emily O'Brien, Leah Seydoux, Mads Mikkelsen, of course, Troy Baker. Guillermo del Toro is in this as a body scan. I guess they got a voice actor, Jesse Cordy, to do his voice. I guess because he's not an actor, maybe. I don't know. And then even I don't even know how I feel about this. Conan O'Brien and Jeff Keighley are in the game too.
Yeah, they are.
I think that part of me thinks that's hilarious. Conan said that he was in Tokyo filming like for his show for Conan. And he just went over and they were like, hey, you're here. Let's just scan you in, which I think that kind of rules. That's pretty funny. Like you just happen to be there and he's like, yeah, fuck it. Let's do it. Who cares?
Not only is it cool that they have Conan O'Brien, but they have him shacked up with a cosplayer. So we all know what kind of man he is. Yeah, I remember, sorry to cut you off, Rick. I don't remember coming across either of them. Or maybe they were, and it was just the kind of the weird scan when you go into one of the facilities and they're up there. But yeah, I don't remember coming across Sam Lake or Edgar Wright.
Yeah, I missed Conan as well. I was told that he's a random delivery in the early game, but I think I missed it. Anyways, speaking of all these actors, though, everybody speaks glowingly about working with Kojima. By all accounts, he's... I'm hesitant to say great to work with because I haven't, really dug into it. But everything that I've seen, Del Toro, Norman Reedus, Conan, everybody speaks about him glowingly. So it seems like he's a good one to work with. I want to move into talking more about the game, though. Let's talk visuals. I mean, look, the credit where it's due. I'm going to shit on a lot of this game as we move forward because there are things that I think are bad. The visuals just ain't one. This game is absolutely gorgeous. I started it on PC. I've played the beginning of this game like 4 times, dude. I don't know why, but I started this on PC and then I went to PS5. I'm playing the director's cut. It's just what I have. This game is beautiful, like from the body scans to the facial expressions and the motion capture to the design of the BTs, which are just incredible, to the landscape. The landscape and the way that Kojima directs the camera is simply gorgeous. This to me, like something I keep looking at the landscape and thinking Icelandic, but I'm not basing that off anything. I just feel it in my gut. This is you both are shaking your head yes, so I'm not off base with this.
It's very correct. This looks just like it.
Yeah, it's definitely Iceland, and I believe that's what they said. The developers said in an interview at one point is that they're designing it. It for me, not to contradict you, Rick, is that I love the look, and this is one of the from what I understand as well, this is one of the powers of the Decima engine is that the environmental foliage and the different tech that goes into creating the variability in environmental design is one of the things that Decima is like the best at. And it really shows here. And obviously, if anybody has played the Horizon series, their environments are great as well. I have a little bit more qualms with Horizon's visual design versus Death Stranding's. But yeah, I completely agree with you, Rick. This is a gorgeous game. I'm a little pissed that America doesn't look like this. I wish America actually looked the way it does in this game. But yeah, it's really funny how it seems that you can just go on like a 45-minute hike and go from Wyoming down to, what is it, like Kansas? It's great to me. I like that.
Yeah, this and because you're spending so much time in this expansive landscape, it's really important that it sells the feelings of one wilderness, just untainted, that sort of untainted wilderness that comes after a natural catastrophe, which is what this game is set in. It is a dystopia of sorts. America is gone functionally. The world is gone functionally. Nature perseveres, as it will forever. Until this planet is gone, nature will persevere outside of us. And this sells that perfectly. The landscapes are open. It gives this amazing sense of peace and also isolation. It's very, and this is just the landscape, not talking about like the mechanics of helping other players. It gives a sense of deeply isolated and lonely, but it's very zen and peaceful, which feeds into the sort of pace of play and the design ethos of the game itself. But and I will say too, I have not beat this game yet. I don't love doing this. I don't love coming on to do an episode without having beat the game. I'm only a couple chapters in, so I haven't got to like the snow biome yet, for example. But everything I've seen so far is just really lush. It's not lush and verdant. It's mostly barren, actually. But the streams and the ridges and the plateaus, it's really relaxing. Having something like this sort of meditative, languid pace of play is just such a breath of fresh air in many ways.
And it's great too, just because the environments, as you mentioned there, like the different streams, the kind of jagged crags, the mountains that jut off into the sky, is not just there to look pretty, but they're very much parts of the gameplay and how you interact with the world. So it's the kind of situation to where if you see a ravine that drops down, you scan and you see a piece of, a package down there for you to pick up. It's not for you to just, oh, well, I'll hop over it and leave it alone. You can throw something down, scale back up, really use the environment to kind of not just navigate, obviously, but it's really working hand in hand with the look versus how you're moving around the environment, which I found very nice as far as just kind of pathing. I felt like the best part of the game, obviously, aside from it being coined or maybe just called the walking simulator, is being able to figure out from where I'm standing. There are 8 different paths that all make sense. What is my choice as far as like my maximum enjoyment or maximum safety or maximum danger? I don't know. I found myself doing that multiple times even throughout this replay that I've been doing, and it just kind of brought it all back from 2019.
Or maximum, how much can I break the physics a la Skyrim on this mountain?
Correct. Yeah. Saying, will I get my my truck stuck in a ravine and jump and have it bounce 30 feet in the air?
Oh my God, we'll talk about these fucking trucks. Yeah, I agree with everything that you said as well, Rick, and with regards to just the feeling that the environmental design imparts on you as you play. Also, I will say this. I think that in terms of the visual design of the enemies, oh my God, when I first started playing this game initially, I was so surprised at how quickly it turned from this really, really cool third person, hiking simulator exploration of just like this feeling of just absolute vibes that I was really, really liking, to the immense terror that the BTs were imparting upon it. And just the look of the hands that are splashing down onto the ground as they come towards you frighteningly quickly. And I think that it's one of those things where I'm going through and I'm playing the game, and it's just as soon as I see those, and as soon as you learn how to use the BT and it goes in the area, of course, we'll get more into that, but just that feeling, the look of the vibe, especially when you actually confront a BT. I will say, again, shout out to Yoji Shinkawa, because this is wholly unique, and it also makes me understand and give the vibes of like, I feel like he was pulling things from PT and just injecting them directly into this game in a way that makes sense for Death Stranding. Not to say that he's just kind of like Frankensteining this game together in parts. It all kind of works seamlessly together, but at the same time, I'm like, what did we actually miss with PT? I've only ever seen YouTube videos, so I'm really curious.
Well, first of all, you can find playable PC versions of PT. There is a hilarious one.
Okay,
when we
good
did
to know.
when former co-host Ben and I did it on this show. I found one that had this really bizarre opening. Like, you start out in a room and you don't go back into it, but this opening room for some reason just had a bunch of dedications to this programmer's friends, and most notably a big rapper. It was like a shrine to this rapper, mumble rapper I'd never heard of. Just such a weird thing. But anyways,
incredible.
Yes, this does kind of make me pine for Silent Hills, and I know everybody says that. I know, but I mean, what can I say? It looked so promising and fantastic. These BTs are amazing. Yoji Shinkawa and Kojima both. I mean, these are downright terrifying. These are, and they're so simple in their design, humanoid, but with proportions that don't make sense, and seemingly made out of tar, nether, smoke, goo. We're not sure. Like it verges on that. What's the guy? It defies description. It's too horrible for Lovecraft. It verges on that kind of thing. And, speaking of like Frankensteining it together, we see that tons with composers, which is like the one thing that I can speak half-assedly about. Composers do that all the time. They take sketches of rejected pieces or stuff that they didn't like and just put it together. So Kojima doing that makes all the sense in the world. As much as I don't think he's a very good writer, and whether or not he needs an editor, that's kind of like a trope at this point. Whether or not that's true, he knows what he wants and he has a distinctive style, and I can't appreciate that. Yeah, just looking at this game is just gorgeous and unsettling, which I think is the point. I'm not a fan of how often babies are in my face. Don't love it. They look weird. I don't know. What do you want?
I love those little baby cutscenes, though, when you're coming out of the private rooms. You get like the little thumbs up, or sometimes they turn around and get a little tushy in the face.
Are you specifically referring to like the repatriation points when you go down the throat of Sam when he's coming back to life, or is it just like the involvement of the BB in just general gameplay context?
I don't know what Will was referring to. That's what I was referring to, the throat scene.
Okay.
I mean,
that is very uncomfy. I don't like esophagi.
I haven't made up my mind on the BB yet. Certainly haven't seen anything else like it. I love that you can relax it by rocking it, and if you jostle the controller too much, you just start shaking the thing.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't mean to I hope that doesn't upset listeners, but oh my God, that cracked me up. Speaking of shaking babies, let's talk mechanics. Patreon.com/pixelprojectradio. So far, this is where this game shines to me. And this ties into that design ethos of a slow, meditative pace of play. A world that, well, it's a combination of a world that is now empty of humanity. Empty is maybe not the right word, but we're sort of starting over. Humanity is being sort of rebuilt, and now nature is taking over. And it is meditative in that way. It's Zen in that way. And there's also the notion of the delivery system. You know, think back to Seinfeld, you know, Newman's classic monologue, "The mail never stops." You know, something I ran into very early in this game was trying to do way too many lost deliveries. And I was just sinking time, so much time backtracking to do these deliveries, because it is pretty satisfying. There is something to be said about the Zen-like satisfaction of having a goal, a clearly defined and reachable goal that you can check off and do. Do it and done. Do it again and done. There is something very systematic, pattern-based. You get into a groove and it just works. And the walking, you know, Will, you mentioned this is a walking simulator. That word gets sort of thrown around derogatorily, but I've always loved the quote unquote walking simulators. Firewatch and Edith Finch were two early episodes on this show. I love those games. Not Gone Home. What's the one with the boat that everybody cried over because, you know, it's not fun.
2 hours later.
Dear Esther. That's what it
spilled?
was. Dear Esther.
Oh,
Dear Esther.
okay. I never played Dear Esther.
Okay.
Dear, I don't even, you know, what sucks is I don't even remember why I was looking for that now. Walking simulators.
Because people were talking shit about walking simulators. You know?
I think, you know, this idea, does a game need to be fun? At this point, like, that's another conversation that's becoming almost rote and uninteresting and just regurgitated, right? Anytime I hear an episode or a YouTube video about it, it's just people making the same points that they've heard elsewhere. And it's because this is kind of, I don't want to say exhausted, but I haven't heard an interesting take on this in a long time. Games don't need to be fun any more than music needs to be hummable, any more than dance needs to be pretty, right? That's just how art works, you know? Any more than literature needs to be florid. I mean, this is, you know, I'm remembering back in high school reading The Great Gatsby and The Road in the same year. At the time, I couldn't understand it. Like, I hated The Road because, well, he's not writing pretty. Like if I wrote like this, I would fail my AP exam. And that's not the point, because mechanics is not the be-all, end-all of art. You can have the most perfectly crafted sonata form with a great development and a recapitulation, but if it's not saying something, if it doesn't tie into the artist's voice, what worth does it have? At that point, you're just doing an exercise, an etude. And that's what I think of when I think of games like this, walking simulators. The walking of Death Stranding feeds so perfectly into the design ethos and the thesis of the game, connecting one another, and then these aesthetic philosophies of like meditative Zen, of feeling alone, of isolation, and just that pace of play philosophy that is so anti-AAA for the most part until the combat. We'll talk about that. So anti-AAA of just being in the moment and plodding and slow, langsam or languid or whatever pretentious language you want to use. Glacial is another one that I wrote in here.
Yeah.
I also wrote One Must Imagine Newman Happy. We're off of the Newman thing. I just wanted to say that joke because I laughed at it. But
I appreciate it.
It's so simpatico and synchronous with the identity of the game. And also, frankly, it's satisfying to do. Like, I found it extremely satisfying to be walking across in balance, you know, holding myself steady, climbing ladders, traversing the world, especially, again, credit to where credit's due with Kojima, those perfectly placed tracks by Low Roar. It was really, really vibey and satisfying. I loved it.
Yeah, and not to reiterate too much of what you've already said, Rick, but I wholeheartedly agree with you. The mechanics developed at the heart of what Death Stranding is, of what Kojima wanted to convey with this experience in this game, is by far and away the best aspect. Like, I legitimately enjoyed the core gameplay design of delivering packages and going from one waypoint center to another, and figuring out, like I wrote this in my notes, is that there is an inherent loop, a really enjoyable hook to that gameplay loop of preparing, strategizing what you're going to bring with you in order to navigate the environment and the terrain, and then executing those deliveries. And to your credit, what you had mentioned earlier, Rick, as well, is that contemplative, zenful aspect of being out, even if you are out in the wilderness and you're starting to experience stress, if your boots are breaking down, if the gear that you're wearing, like if one of Sam has an ability to equip multiple different exoskeletons to his lower body to support him in, managing some of these deliveries, these loads, that he's carrying, which can be quite large at times. And I think it's one of those things where you have to start really being very strategic about what you choose to bring with you, what route you choose to take. And it's even further interesting is that the onboarding to the process of actually playing this game is really well done in the first part of this game, where they tell you, okay, hey, look, there are multiple strategies for you to get from point A to point B. Here's a more dangerous one that has a lot more treacherous terrain that you can use some equipment to get over, and it will take you less time. And here's a longer one that might actually have you go around maybe to some BT or mule territory, but you can manage that and you can get there just a little bit slower in terms of what do you want to risk? How do you want to tackle that? And that comes back over and over and over again. And they evolve it in a very slow and steady way. They give you new equipment incrementally and at very purposeful times that kind of make a lot of sense with how you want to, address and manage different, deliveries and different shipment loads. And that I really, really enjoyed it. And I think that it's one of the coolest things to do that. Once I stopped using vehicles to do these deliveries, I found a lot of enjoyment in figuring out how to do it. The trike is not good. The truck is awful. The truck is useful. The truck is very handy, and I hope I'm not spoiling this for you, Rick, in terms of where you're at and what you can get later on. But I think it's one of those things where whatever they were doing, whatever they were thinking of having it seems very silly, the fact that they decided to make a game about trekking across the wilderness and not making giving you a four-wheeler, not giving you a road hog that you could go over a few speed bumps. Some of the mechanics for that are legitimately silly, but otherwise, I think that the core loop of managing that load with Sam and going from point A to point B is really powerful. Not to mention, again, the theme of connectivity. One of the things that listeners, if you're not aware of it by this point, when you're tapped into the online infrastructure, and you don't have to be, but it's highly recommended in terms of how you're managing Death Stranding, is that when you activate online mode for Death Stranding, you are actually connected to sometimes your friends, but then oftentimes just random people's servers.
Right.
In their game, and then you have access to equipment that they have built in the wilderness. So there have been times that are truly when we talk about emergent gameplay, there have been times where I have been shit out of luck. I'm out of hermetic grenades. My boots are almost broken. My energy bar, my battery for my exoskeleton is completely in the red. It's not functioning anymore. And all of a sudden I see a generator from a random person, or I see a timefall shelter from a different person that will shield me from the timefall rain, or give me the opportunity to recharge my battery to get myself to that last leg of the mission. And those parts where it's oh my gosh, with the amount of serotonin that I feel when I have those moments, it's it's incredible. It doesn't happen all the time, but I think that that's smart. It's wisely done. I don't know if it's curated or monitored for that specific ability, but the fact that they chose to do it that way and have those limitations inherent that can be alleviated by the community, I think it's really smart, and it's really complementary to the story he was trying to tell.
That on top of, it's also great too when, say for example, Nick, you mentioned coming across a random generator or a timefall shelter, then the game gives you the option, and generally it makes you do it at least once if you actually use said object, but to send a like to the person that made that. Just a little thumbs up. It's something that literally is a number going up. It doesn't give you anything special. It doesn't give you real life money or even in-game money or anything. But there's something really neat about not playing for a couple of days or a week, logging back in, and then one of the first things that pops up is a player used your ladder, a player used your bridge, a player did this, a player used a road that you created, which takes a ton of material to put the roads together. And then your likes go up, 300, 400 points, which I feel like also taps into that serotonin, completely draws to that, being connected, being online with the other players and everybody kind of being in that same muck. So it just really helps you band together, even if you're just playing by yourself in your living room.
This is I'm going to forget to bring this up. Otherwise, I promise we're going to get right back on track. Speaking of likes, the way people write emails to you in this game is so unhinged and passive aggressive. They just throw shitloads of thumbs up emojis at you and like horny emojis at you sometimes. It is
what? I didn't notice
like
that.
Drooling,
like the water.
The water. Yes, the water. It is. Oh my God! Like I was reading some of these, like I couldn't help but laugh. It's so silly. Anyways, I knew I'd forget, so I wanted to say that the trike is profoundly weightless. It feels so unsatisfying to drive. That being said, it get me to point A to point B faster, and right now I like that. So I haven't got the truck yet. I've seen plenty of truck footage from like Dunkey and stuff. So, you
haven't beat up a mule and taken their truck and drove that around for a little bit?
I've beat up some mules, which I think the mules are kind of a dumb concept, but I've beat them up. Mm-hmm. I haven't killed anybody yet. I have heard that if you do that, there are consequences, but I haven't done that yet. Speaking of combat, with people, the combat comes on kind of early. You can punch and shove and stuff. You also get this strand, of course. It's basically like a bungee cord that's woven with your blood that you can kind of choke somebody out from behind, which is cool because that doesn't kill them, which does have in-lore consequences. And that's really helpful because these mules in-game are very hostile toward you. Think of them as like bandits. Functionally, that's what they are. Combat stuff beyond that involve the BTs, which I kind of go back and forth as to whether it's serviceable or really tedious to go through. The combat stuff with the BTs, you can throw specialized grenades at them and use a specialized gun at some point, I'm pretty sure. And that's fine. That's okay. It's whenever the BTs sort of turn the ground into a puddle of ink goop nether, and you have to sort of trudge through it and you're constantly pushing them off of you. Visually, it's very cool, but it feels like it's so random as to whether I'm going to get dragged down and get into a big fight or if I'm going to be able to shake them off of me. I can't find a rhyme or reason. It's just really annoying. You don't have to engage with a lot of this stuff, though. Like if you can, especially with people, but with BTs too, you can stealth around. And Will, this is a question for you in particular. Like I know that's a big thing in Metal Gear Solid games. Stealth. It's very much a stealth game. You're kind of encouraged not to, go in guns blazing, say hello to my little friend on everybody. What is the stealth balancing with combat like in Death Stranding compared to like what you've played of Metal Gear Solid? Is it like a natural evolution? Is he taking like a complete rebalancing? Is it kind of the same? Like what's it like?
It feels a lot more like a rebalancing. It was funny because we were talking about the initial Kojima games versus this one, and in the back of my head I was thinking, well, this is kind of a great Kojima game to start off on because of how different it is to like the Metal Gear Solid series, which I still agree with. But there is a good amount of overlap with some of these, not only the stealth parts of the game, but also how in the other Metal Gear Solid games, it does not explicitly say to, but a lot of the times it rewards you, or maybe it doesn't hurt you to be non-lethal with your attacks. So sneaking up behind somebody, a lot of times you have the option to either break a neck or to put them to sleep.
Sure.
Putting them to sleep normally lets them wake up a little bit later. So if you're just trying to be done with it, you could kill them potentially. But that generally would harm you, especially in part 3. If anyone's listening, they know you get a good part for not killing people versus it makes it a lot more painful later on in the game. And this game is no different. As we mentioned, you don't want to kill enemies in this game due to story reasons that we'll get into. So it's in your best interest to either be stealthy or use non-lethal tactics, both of which Sam has no lack of, especially when you get into later on like Act 3, Act 4, when you get multiple ways to put down a mule, non-lethally versus having to shoot them with something that's a lethal round. So I wouldn't say natural progression, just because especially Metal Gear Solid 5 got really, really wicked with the stealth. Like, it got really nice. And this is very much not a stealth game so much as it is Sam can use stealth in order to get in and out of situations. But I would say in most cases, it's in your best interest. However, when things pop off, very easy to pull out a bowler gun and kind of handle business.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly, William, when you say that like this isn't a stealth game whatsoever, especially somebody who truly does love stealth games like Assassin's Creed. Not to say that Assassin's Creed is the best example of stealth games, but like, you know, other games out there that deploy stealth, you know, really, really well. Think of your Deus Ex or even Splinter Cell. Of course, those are, you know, the defining core characteristics of those games. Even the Last of Us series does stealth amazingly well. You can stealth your entire way through that game if you wanted to. But, you know, specifically with Death Stranding, I will say this is something that I think is really important for people to know at this point, since we're getting into combat, we're getting into how we manage these encounters. I think that as good as an onboarding process that they do for managing the core components of deliveries in this game, they do an equally poor job of giving the player incremental updates on this is how you manage situations. Like, for example, like they give you opportunities when you are in safe houses to do different missions in order to learn how to handle different weapons, but those are optional. I chose to do the hermetic grenade one. Once I did the hermetic grenade one, I did not go back to do anything else because I was like, I can figure it out. I can, you know, learn the hard way to do certain things. But what I will say is that, like, specifically with a strand, I didn't realize until it became vitally necessary at the tail end of this game to know how to use the strand that you could actually go throughout different mule camps and manage stealth options when you're, you know, going through that and acquiring different materials. There are several times where the game asks you to go retrieve deliveries from a mule camp as well, where it kind of becomes important to learn how to, or know how to use stealth options in this game. This is also going to kind of give me a secondary, like, tangent pivot from this point about, like, I think that one of the things that the game struggled with is like giving you successive tutorialization as they introduce new mechanics, is the fact that we didn't talk about it in the visuals, but the UI in this game is fucking awful. It is one of the worst parts about this game and makes me want to scream and throw my controller.
I have that
Not
note,
only is the UI bad.
Sorry. I have that note later on. It is maximalist parentheses derogatory.
Yeah. It's so bad. And the UI is bad. The map, I will say this, the map, like, is interesting in its concept. It is wholly, like, it's not usable. The map is really, really bad in terms of understanding what the terrain looks like, how it goes into. And interestingly enough, from what I've seen of, like, gameplay and trailers, which Kojima is notorious for giving away too much information in his trailers and details, but, like, from what I've seen in the gameplay, it looks like that was a big point of contention that Kojima Productions wanted to work on for the second game. And from cursory review, it looks like they addressed a lot of that. So be interested to see inevitably when I do get to the point of playing the second game, how that progresses. But, like, I never turned off the tip screen because at the beginning of the game, I was like, oh, I want to know the tips as I encounter the situations of handling the mules or managing BTs. And the tips can be helpful, but they're given to you at really inopportune times. And then on top of that, the tip screen is like a block that covers up 25% of the bottom of the screen too. So it's like it's just a successive level of, like, the text isn't readable. This is not an accessibility friendly game. The UI has too much maximalism going on. You have to, like, go out of your way to refine the data points on the map to know what you want to look at. And I just think it's just too much work, and there's just too much.
It's overwhelming. They feel like they need to be badgering you at every point. And that's kind of a theme of this game, is they at every point want to make sure that you know how clever they are and how well designed they are and how well polished they think they are. Like, they really are afraid of players not being aware of how creative they are, which is the sign of a really insecure artist. It's sometimes in those pop-ups, sometimes it's Die Hardman just constantly ringing in to tell you an update. And he talks to you like no human being would ever talk to somebody else. There is this amazing post that I found that I tweeted on Blue Sky because I was complaining about this very thing. Credit to Matthew Seiji for coming up with this comedy gold. But it's just like this is what it sounds like be-doo-dee-doo. Sam, it's me, Die Hardman. Wanted to let you know there's banana bread in the kitchen. You can take a portion of this sweet cake bread anytime. Use the knife to cut off part of the loaf. You can take a full piece or a small piece, depending on how hungry you are.
This is the perfect opportunity.
It's like that. Just
That was really good. That was actually very good.
Really good.
I thought I was playing the game again.
That's really good. He like you said, he doesn't speak like a human being, and he is almost in every single facet of this game. It's like the dialogue they wrote for this character was like a manual. It's like they wanted to create a manual for this game, but they decided to make it a character.
Yeah, that's not completely wrong. I mean, a lot of the times, especially since he's carrying you through the story, he's kind of letting you know this is the next point you need to go to. And, they're trying to do it without slapping a big go this way thing on your face. And then they kind of also do it anyways. So I guess it defeats the purpose.
Give me the yellow paint over Die Hardman. I'd rather take yellow paint any day. Sorry, Will, I cut you off. Man. My bad.
That's really sad. But no, I don't know. It's funny. I feel like, and we kind of talked about it at the top of this, I'm going to be like the Kojima apologist for this episode. But I agree with y'all. The UI is a lot, but I never got too many points where I felt like it was really bad. There are a lot of friction points, and I feel like ultimately that's kind of the subtitle of Death Stranding. It's like Death Stranding, friction points. And I think they did it on purpose. There's a lot of times where you are interacting with something and it's not neat, packaged, well put together, but you have to press multiple buttons. For example, hell, if you put too many packages on your back and then you have to hold packages in your hands, which is a pretty neat feature, but it also requires you to hold both triggers at the same time while now also walking and running. It's like it makes you feel like you have your hands full because Sam literally has his hands full while playing the game. So I don't know. I know the UI is a ton and it's in your face, but I feel like ultimately, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it fades away as long as you're not doing something like actively, because I remember plenty of times walking around up in the mountains, for example, and just seeing like a beautiful vista and being able to take a nice screenshot because there's not too much stuff on the screen unless I'm sliding down a mountain or I'm getting attacked by mules or I'm like seen by their little pop-ups that scan your packages and make you get chased halfway around America. Yeah. But it's one of those things where it fades in, it fades out. You use the D-pad to kind of open up your multi-use items like your PCCs and your ladders and things like that. I feel like it's fairly easy to maneuver once you give it that, 2 hours, 3 hours of kind of onboarding, as Nick was talking about.
10 hours of remembering that you need to press X to close out of a menu once you're ready, once everything is already auto-sorted on your back. Like, that's another thing that, like, really gets me. Is that,
you just got to hold X.
Again, you're right, Will. There's a lot of friction to it. And what I will say to kind of clarify is that, like, to your point, Will, those gameplay mechanics of balancing the R2, L2, of being like, that's fine. I don't have any issue with that. It is relatively minimalist when you are out in the open environment. It's mainly the menu system and the different ways that you have to do it. Like even when you're going in and selecting your weapons and stuff like that, it's largely okay. It's just really not to my tastes. And I think that there are certain points where you have to figure out, you have to build that muscle memory that by that point, of course, 65-ish hours later into this game, like I finally got the hang of it, getting into it, but it's just getting to that point where I was okay, or I was comfortable really going in and out of it. It was a struggle for me.
Makes you feel like Sam Bridgman.
Thank you, Sam.
I would be remiss not to mention this before we move on to music and sound, but Kojima didn't invent this idea of a porter. In fact, this is inspired by an actual Japanese profession, albeit a very small one, that of the Japanese boka. They are porters that are in Japan. They tend to work between the months of April and like October, when the weather's not hazardous. And these are so neat. I found a fascinating article on the bokas of Ose Park on Japan's National Parks of Japan website. Boka uses the kanji for walk and luggage. Kind of self-explanatory, but like straight up, they stack packages just like Sam does. It looks identical if you place, Sam in the real world. And they carry 75 kilograms, 100 kilograms, 125 kilograms to these remote places that are inaccessible to vehicles. And it is just a fascinating rabbit hole to go down. Very, very cool, very proud of the work that they do too. And at the heart of it all, the ones that they interviewed in the couple of articles that I saw, which I'll put in the show notes, by the way, at the heart of it, they're like, it brings people together. Like that's why they do that. That's why they take pride in it. It is, it's a very humanistic idea of uniting everybody, which again, in today's day and age is something that's difficult to keep at the forefront of daily life, I think. There is some more combat stuff to talk about, like your piss and shit grenades, which is a very funny concept to me. And it's cool that, you can just use the bathroom anytime you're in your room and you get more of your piss and shit grenades. Why I have to skip 4 cutscenes with Norman Reedus's bare ass to make one of these? Like they really want.
Wait, you skip the cutscenes?
I skip the bare ass cutscenes. I've seen it once. I don't need to see this every time, man. But you have to skip like 4 of them. They really want you to
skip the master cheeks. It's crazy.
They really want you to see those cheeks.
Let's see the ad for Norman Reedus's ride on AMC that I'm sure is not on air anymore.
Yeah. What is that, like a porn thing?
That's really funny.
The Norman Reedus. What are you talking about?
So when you take a shit in the game, it pops up an ad for Norman Reedus had a TV show where it was him riding around like the U.S. on a motorcycle, just like talking to people, kind of like a Diners, Drive-In and Dive type of situation. And it was on AMC, and it was actually active around 2019 when the game came out. So they had the ad in there. Since you played the director's cut, well, I think both of you played the director's cut, so you don't know. Initially, the drinks that are Bridge Energy inside your private room used to be Monster Energy.
Baby.
They changed it for the director's cut.
Yeah, why did they change that? Do you know?
I'm sure licensing.
Just the ad placement licensing. They couldn't re-up it for director's cut. That's another fun Kojima thing. He just likes to ad drop. You'll probably see that through, I'm sure, Death Stranding 2 as well is going to have some fun stuff like that.
Yeah, I will say something to your point since we're talking about the room, the safe house is what they call it in the game. I will say that this is an example of Kojima design that I actually really like. And something that, from what I understand about the Metal Gear series, is that he has a tendency to have fourth wall breaking antics in a lot of his different games. And I'm sure, Will, you can probably confirm this. But this is something, of course, where several moments, like you said, Rick, you get to see Norman Reedus get in the shower, piss and shit, that sort of thing. And then, of course, he's sitting on the bed and the camera does zoom around in a very cool way. It is very on its nose. It is very in your face. It is very much, oh, look at how smart we are and with the design that we have. But I will say that it worked for me in an interesting way, seeing the baby on the wall, seeing the armory of the different equipment that you stack up over time. That is the kind of stuff that I do like. Drinking the energy drinks, going into modify. And this is something that they changed with the director's cut, is where you're able to, modify the color of your outfit, the color of your vehicles, that sort of thing. I think is very wholly unique. In its design itself. I liked it, and especially when they played around with it. If I'm not mistaken, there's also like a Nier Automata Stellar Blade where if you're moving in the camera while he's in the shower, he'll like take the camera and like shove you away or something like that. He does
really?
He does
fun stuff. You can't get a look at the taint?
When he's sitting on the bed, you can't look at his feet. If you look at his feet too much and try to zoom in, he punches the camera in the face.
That's great. That made me laugh, and well, I shouldn't say that. I'll get canceled. That's pretty funny. No looking at the taint. This is
no schmeat.
This is purely, no schmeat. You'd think, what did I pay for the director's cut for? Fucking bullshit. Kojima, get your shit together.
Give me the Norman Reedus. No, I can't say it. Like you said, I'm going to get canceled. Can't say it. That's for the Patreons only. You got to subscribe to hear the fun stuff.
All I was going to say is it made me laugh when 2B kicked the camera if you tried to look up her skirt. I don't...
Yeah.
We're getting... Yeah. This is Pixel Project Radio After Dark.
After Dark.
I will say, this is purely a taste thing. I'm not saying this is good or bad. It pissed me off. It pisses me off every time specifically when he does the thing where he gets his face into the camera and like taps it and then like points back, you know, like the soy jack thing, like he's that pisses me off. I don't know why.
That didn't, you weren't, it wasn't hitting. You don't
That
like it?
one specifically, like the other ones, like there are other times where he'll like kind of glance at the camera and then like, you know, tilt his head like, hey, check that out. But that one where he just gets in and you like, points back, that makes me so mad. I don't know why.
We talk about menus in gameplay and grading. Okay, I'm so glad you brought that up, Rick, because I was on a treacherously close to not remembering this. When you're in facilities and you're preparing for trips and you're going from way station to way station, there's a function where you have to unload equipment that you either don't use or don't need. And it's actually very smart because there's a lot of this game where it's like you really have to be picky about what you bring along with you in the trips. To that end, you have to recycle a lot of equipment. This is good because this gives you materials. There is a jingle in this game after you're done recycling. There's like a national anthem blaring, and I don't know if you can splice this in, Rick, if you know the soundbite that I'm thinking of, but it has this stupid fucking picture of a character named Bridget Strand, and she says, "Thank you for your service," and it's like I'm in an army brigade, or it's like I don't know how to describe it. It's so annoying.
You know what's funny?
I hated it every time, and you can't skip it.
You know what's funny? That kind of, there is a through line of like aggressive capitalism that's a part of this. Like I saw a tweet the other day, and listen, I'm going to say this up front. One, don't ever take, you know, politics from video game podcasters seriously. Two things you should never take seriously from video game podcasters, myself included: philosophy and politics. But there's like, and I'm not prepared to talk on this obviously because I haven't beat the game yet, but there's like this aggressive through line of capitalism taken to its extreme. Like somebody called this, I saw a tweet about how this is like a very communist game. And I read their like the whys, and I was like, okay, that feels like a bit of a stretch. Like I feel like I'm being taken advantage of by a corporation to do all their menial dirty work, boots on the ground work, so they can get the credit for rebuilding America. But I guess that's just me. Like, and again, Will, you're doing the ooh hoo 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 hands. Maybe that goes somewhere.
Good.
Maybe they want me to feel that way. I am, like I said, I'm not. This isn't a critique of the game. That's just how I feel at this point in time. I'm barely into chapter 3. So like that could change. They could have me right where they want me, and I wouldn't even know. But I'm looking for it. It does feel that way though. Like you get that. It feels like adjacent to Fallout almost. You know, like it's that like obnoxious a little bit.
If I'm not mistaken, the Bridges company, it's almost like it's almost to the extent of like how China handles a lot of the corporations that are state-run organizations. Like they're businesses that are independent, but they're like distinctly controlled by the state. And I think it's like one of those things that also, I hate that I'm making so many Last of Us comparisons, but it's like Fedra, where it's like a paramilitary organization, but it's also like the only organization left in the world that's run by some type of centralized governing force. And I feel like that's what Bridges HQ is. Like they're the only force that has direct connection to like the governing bodies of the US anymore. That's how I interpreted it.
That is accurate.
It feels more like I'm their lackey, whereas I never felt like Fedra had lackeys. They just had like everybody was part of the cause. I don't know. I haven't thought about this enough to, you know, really explain it or get into it. But
it's the kind of thing that pops up too, not to cut you off there, but you know, as you feel, I feel like you're feeling exactly how they want you to feel in that moment. Just because as we later on get into the story, you know, obviously not to spoil anything up front or kind of tiptoe too far into it, you have to go do all these things and you kind of have to buy in, right? You don't just come on board and say, I'm a good soldier, I'm going to be with the UCA. You know, they have to convince you. Mm-hmm. And during this time of you playing through the game and making these connections, not only do they try to convince you to be on board, but while you're doing it, you're kind of like convincing yourself that this is the proper thing to be doing. Sure. And you see that throughout the game as it goes. Once again, friction points, the video game. Sam is not, you know, gung-ho ready to do this. There's always a reason that he's doing it, and each step of the way carries a lot of friction for that.
Yeah, I'm glad that I am right where they want me. I'm looking forward to it. Don't be so serious. Don't be so serious. Don't be so serious. Music and sound. I'm not going to say too much on this. I already said throughout, I think that the cued music, where he blocks a scene and he pulls the camera back and low roar comes out to play, I think that's really vibey, and I think it is, low roar, I wasn't familiar with them before this. It very much sounds like what the theater majors in high school would listen to, or, like when they were, going through the feelings or whatever. It's really vibey. I like it. I mean, I don't dislike it. It's kind of Bjorky-ish, maybe.
Bjork, really?
Yeah, sort of. I do like that. I like that cued music. It worked for me every time. Hilarious, because then they never send you the reminders. The screen is totally like empty, just showing the landscape. And your sound is cut out too. So when you trip down a mountain, the soundtrack just keeps playing. You don't actually hear it. You just see you tumbling. It's very funny. But in addition to that, and we'll get to Forcell's score too, I appreciate how often there's just no music. It's just silence. You just hear the world. I liked that a lot. That contributed to the feeling of like loneliness and isolation. The extreme vast emptiness of the world now that the Death Stranding, wiped everything out.
Definitely agree there.
Yeah, it's one of those things, again, for fear of repeating myself, I won't go too long on it, but yeah, to your point, Rick, it's the moments of quietude, of going over the mountaintops and hearing the wind blow over like the peaks as you're trudging along through the snow, and you're aware of what you're dealing with, you're aware of the weight that you're managing, you're aware that you're in a situation you probably don't want to be in because that point in the game is really hard, or you're missing something that you really should have. But it's those moments where you're out there and you kind of see where you have to go. And circling back to another thing you said, Rick, about that clearly defined objective, those pinpointings, those easily manageable bite-sized objectives is a perfect complement to this game and its sound design. And it's one of those things that I love. Yeah, it's just hearing those sounds of nature, the running waters, the springs, and the grass, and just like Sam's footfalls. It's great. It's incredibly well done.
It's funny, and juxtaposing the nature and the quietness that you both mentioned, which I also very much enjoy. I also really like how it's kind of pierced occasionally by the notes, the flags. What are they called? Posts? Whatever flags? People can drop in the world that you can like run over and they make noise.
Post boxes.
Yeah. Well, not just the post box, but like the little like the smiley faces, and the suns,
the signs. Yeah.
Yeah, the signs. Yes. Yeah. So I love that. I love being able to, when you're running through an area that's uploaded to the Cairo network, and you run through a little thumbs up post, and it gives you a like, and it gives the person a like, and you hear keep on keeping on. It's that kind of thing that reminds you how you're connected. And like I mentioned, how it just kind of cuts into, that more quiet sound. But then you remember, although it's quiet and you're alone in this time, you're still technically around people. You're using things that others have built and others have made in order to make your life and your deliveries a little bit easier. So you always have that bit of connectedness while you're in your solitude. So it's interesting. It's very much a part of the games as far as how they want to do it, and I think it comes across very well. So that plays a lot with the sounds.
Yeah, I like those too. Those are nice, and I mean, not related to music, but those give you a little boost of stamina too, which kind of contributes to helping other players. I think that's really cool. Forcell's original compositions are nice too. I'm not crazy about them, but I think they fit. Some of it is sort of that post-rock, kind of like Low Roar a little bit, but just with a lot more electronic instrumentation. But other stuff, like when the BTs come around, or like when you experience the first void out in the very beginning, I think that track is actually chiral carcass culling. It's just this sheets of sound approach, this overwhelming force of sonic wall that is meant to like force feelings of anxiousness and overwhelming and just intensity. It's and then a lot of his other tracks too are just sort of in the background. They don't try to step in front of the acting that's going on, or even the walking in the environment. I think it's appropriate. I'd be interested to see, because at this point in the game, there's not a ton, at least where I am, a ton of his tracks. They're there, but they don't stick out. I wonder, because I took a look through the OST and I see a lot of named tracks named after people. and I'd be curious to hear how much more of those come in. Another, speaking of music, nursery rhymes are used prominently in this. Prominently, two of them. London Bridges is one, which of course they chose them.
Of course it is.
And then another one that I think is made up for this game. If it's not, then I'm not familiar with it. The like, see the sunset, the day is ending. Yeah, I don't think that's original, I think, right?
I think it is, and if it's not, please correct us, but I'm pretty sure it is. Because a lot of the lyrics talking about being on the beach, so I'd be a little surprised unless they just tweaked it from something else.
They do a lot of imagery to suggest not rebirth motifs, but duality. In Sam in particular, the most prominent is Sam as a parental figure of sorts. It could also be read as being one with a baby, with one's infant self, since there's a scene with both of them nude and crying, which makes sense in context, I promise. So that's suggestive of a duality between man and child. Man and father, man and infant, both are represented. And I'm very curious to see if that goes anywhere. If they do, then the London Bridges thing makes, it's just like, of course. And then also because of, their name is Bridges, so it's like, do you get it?
Yeah.
It's one of that things. And also, like, nursery rhymes, they get creepy in things like this, They
do.
That's something that maybe they took from Silent Hills that we never got to see. Who knows? I'm going to, for this edit, probably use more of 4Cell's tracks, just because, one, I would, like to highlight those more, and two, because this is a bigger game, I just don't want to risk getting, an email telling me to stop it. I haven't got that before, but, it doesn't mean that it's not coming. So I'll probably highlight 4Cell stuff, except whenever we talk about Logor, so should be good. Okay, we really took a Kojima approach on this one. I don't know that we've ever gone an hour and a half before getting into the story. And of course I'll edit it because we took a break and we chatted a bit. But we are going to go through a little bit of the story today, not as far as I think I had originally planned, which is fine. The next two episodes we'll talk. It might be a more condensed approach than we have in the past. That might be the direction this show is going anyway. We'll see. But for today, we're definitely, let's say, going to get through Chapter 1. Episode 1, I should say. Prologue in Episode 1. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's repatriate and see what Sam Porter Bridges is up to in the story of Death Stranding. Starts with a quote. I think it's fairly straightforward what it's trying to say. The rope, along with the stick, are two of mankind's oldest tools. The stick to keep the bad away, the rope to bring the good toward us. They were our first friends, our own invention. Wherever there were people, there were the rope and stick. That's Kobo Abe from Nawa. Pretty self-explanatory. We open, gorgeous, gorgeous landscape. This is where we get to see the cliffs, the animals. There's some vegetation and some animals, totally untainted by civilization. But we do see these black wisps going from sky to earth. Animals, they sense something that we don't. That happens a lot. Animals will sense danger way before humans do. They start to run. If you're ever in the forest and the animals, are quiet or they start running, you do the same. They know. But birds begin dropping as rain begins to fall. It's really striking. I really think the first hour and a half or so, 2 hours of this is extremely good. Really, really good. Sam, our main character, Sam Porter Bridges, he is fleeing too. He's on a motorcycle and he just crashes into this innocent bystander of a woman, and he loses his bike. Sam takes cover. This rain that's falling, this is called timefall. We can just explain this now. I think timefall is kind of a cool concept. It's when it touches the ground, it kind of turns to normal rain, but whatever it touches, it accelerates it in time because of the chiral matter that's present within it. So if it rains on you, for example, you age extremely rapidly. When it rains on the ground, you can literally watch the grass growing. Very cool concept.
And then quickly dying.
Oh yeah. So you wanna get the heck out of there. So you take cover. But this is where we're introduced to the BTs too. This invisible demon, guttural uterations just walking around. You can see it. The way they walk is so cool because you can't place. Well, first of all, you don't know what they are. You don't know what form they take, and you can't really place it because their handprints as they walk look just like you or I placing our hands on a desk one at a time. There's no way that we can associate that with a living creature. We don't know what form we're dealing with. And that, to me, is particularly frightening.
Yeah, this is the real raptors in the kitchen moment.
Yeah.
In that cave. So I really enjoyed that opening. Remembering that was a good time.
That woman that we murked into is in here, too, and she keeps us quiet. The thing runs away. Sam can sense these things. Sam has something called dooms, which I don't fully understand, but it lets him sense the BTs. But now that we're safe, this woman speaks. What I wrote here is she says a string of incomprehensible syllables that form what I believe are words and are going to make podcasting about this game exceedingly difficult.
Tears. A chiral allergy. So, you have dooms, like me.
I've got the extinction factor, but I think you got me beat.
What's your level? You can see them, right?
No, but I can sense them.
Level 2, then.
And that's at the time where I was like, what the fuck are they talking about?
They're dropping proper nouns, baby. Proper nouns all over the place.
That's Kojima's trick, is he throws everything at you. Like, he expects you to understand his world, but he doesn't want to explain it to you until he does. Like, he picks his times to info dump on you, and other times he just does nothing and says, you just got to figure it out. It's a very Kojima way of world building, I guess. This woman is Fragile. That's her name, Fragile of the Fragile Express. And she knows who Sam is.
Sam Porter Bridges. The man who delivers.
Somehow. He's heard of her too. But she knows him as the man who delivers. He's heard of her. We're setting up this sort of world. I still don't know how Sam got that moniker, the man who delivers, and like how we're known from the start. I'm assuming I'm just not far enough in the story. This is where we get our first taste of gameplay. And Nick, this is where I call out the overwhelming maximalist barrage of on-screen information, HUDs, colors, and indicators. It is capital T to capital M much. Told you. I got your back here.
You got it. Thank you, Rick. I'm glad that you said that. I agree with you, though. In terms of the assessment of like the very start of this game, this is a really, visually, at the very least, is a very strong introduction to this game, especially as we go later on, as he starts meeting more people, and you kind of, get introduced to the layout of the mechanics of what's happening in the lore here.
Yeah. So I think the way that we're going to have to do this game is to be a bit more liberal in our summation than maybe we would like to be. So what's going on now? Sam gets commissioned for a new job of corpse disposal from this company called Bridges. We're going to learn way more about Bridges soon. It's notable that Sam has that last name, Sam Porter Bridges. It's what he does. It's who he is. It's not subtle, but it's there.
At all.
So we're doing corpse disposal because in this world, when corpses... When people die and they turn into corpses, they start to do something called necrotizing. It's very striking the way that they show this here. You're kind of like positioned in the back of this vehicle as you're driving with this corpse. You're going along with this corpse disposal guy because you can sense the BTs, those invisible demons, because you have dooms. You can sense them, and that's how these guys are going to keep safe. And you see this corpse that's like wrapped up in bandages or whatever, like oozing black liquid into the sky. It's extremely cool.
So the necro, the whole idea of going necro and what happens there as we continue this part, I feel like is one of the most interesting parts of the game, and also the thing you want to happen the least, right? I feel like you'd go out of your way in most cases to avoid that happening, but it's so cool. I love seeing it on YouTube, not in my game.
So as we're riding to dispose of this corpse, disaster strikes. Very tense scene. The BTs attack, and we can see how overwhelmingly destructive they are. They crash the Jeep flips, timefall is raining now, causing like vegetation to grow. One of the guys gets pinned under the Jeep, and the timefall is hitting his face. He's aging, and we're watching it. It is insane. We're in the middle of a BT field, and that starts with B, and that rhymes with P, and that stands for pool, which is trouble. Really, really crazy. It's wild how much destruction these things are raining down. We really don't know what kind of shit these guys are in.
I will say that this is one of the strongest moments for me visually. This is when I start really kind of understanding, as you learn later on, as Sam kind of builds out his kit, you see this like really awesome expansion in like the concept, the idea of like what Yoji Shinkawa like wanted Sam to look like, alongside of like the rest of the character's design. But this is like when we talk about enemy design, environmental design coming together in a true masterclass, alongside of Kojima's notably, albeit amateuristic directorial tendencies. The shooting here is like actually really great. Like the imagery of the timefall coming down on these porters, the sound design of them getting snatched away by BTs. If I'm not mistaken, a couple of them get wiped out by BTs or grabbed, whatever happens when a BT grabs them.
Well, that's the cool part. That's what happens here is our guy that gets, pinned under the Jeep. I think he gets grabbed by a BT, which we can assume is a fate worse than death because he's screaming, and the other guy that's not takes out a gun and shoots him, Yeah. And then that guy in turn gets grabbed by a BT by the leg. He reaches for his gun to shoot himself, but he drops it. So and what seals the deal is as he's being lifted into the sky by these invisible BT demons, he takes out a knife and just starts stabbing himself. Which is so anti-instinct for humans that we have to assume that whatever these BTs do is worse than death. Otherwise, this wouldn't even be an option. Our brain's instincts would not let us stab ourselves like that. This has to be worse than death. This is also where we see them coming out of the ground like an inky black tar.
Yeah.
Very cool. So like PT, very horror film. It's extremely cool. And, debris is flying into the sky, humanoid figures, they're towering, colossal. And this is where this stranger sort of floats down slowly, does the shush sign with his lips, and this is where a void out happens. Mm-hmm. One of you might have to correct me on this. A void out is basically a big explosion that happens from BTs, right?
Yep. So it's when BTs get a hold of biomatter, essentially grabbing a human that's still alive, and that's what causes the void out.
Or the human completing the process of necrotization or becoming a BT is what ultimately does cause a void out as well. Which for listeners, I'm sorry, is that right?
I was just to correct you there. That just makes a BT is a human necro, but it's actually the process of the BT coming in contact. I won't go too far into it, but no, it's the BT coming in contact with a human. That's what causes the true void out.
Okay.
A human dying and going full necro, that makes the BT.
Okay. I must have been confused there because it's not super well explained. But for my thing is that it's just for reference in scale, a void out has the size and the impact of a nuclear explosion, a smaller megaton nuclear explosion.
Yeah, it's disastrous. And this particular void out that occurs here, presumably because this mysterious man that's shushing us, it makes me think of that It's Always Sunny thing. He's shushing me, but he does it, and it wipes out this whole city. We learn shortly, everybody here is dead because of this, except for Sam, who is a repatriate. What is a repatriate? Well, a repatriate is somebody that can come back from the dead. And the way he does this is through this weird, bizarre dream. Sam's dreams are a huge part of this. They always take place on an isolated, kind of decrepit gray beach In this one, a nude Sam finds a crying baby. He picks it up. He's crying. The baby's crying. They hug. This is what I was saying. The duality of Sam as an infant, the child Sam, and the adult Sam. That's me going through puberty just there. As well as the paternal figure Sam. These are both really highlighted a lot throughout this game. Which is why I'm like looking for, like, they're going to do something with this. I know they are. I just don't know what yet. These dreams happen a lot. This is a motif with Sam. There's also a motif that comes up when Sam picks up what's called a beach baby, a BB. I think it's beach baby. A BB is how they're referred to.
Bridge baby.
Bridge baby, yes. Every time he does, he kind of sees through the baby's eyes, who is presumably the dad talking to the baby. That also calls it BB, which is weird that it wouldn't call it by its name, but whatever. You see this a lot too. Absolutely no desire to call out every time that comes up because it happens a lot. Sam comes back to life, repatriate. He can return to life from a place known as the Seam. When he's killed in the Seam, follow the Strand to guide Sam's soul to his body to bring him back. God damn it. And that takes us into episode 1. That was the prologue. I think the prologue is really, really, really good. I really do. I mean, credit where he's due. Do I think he's a good writer? No. Do I think he's a good... Do I think he has good instincts as far as cinematography and creating a world? Yes, I do. At least insofar as Death Stranding. Can't speak to Metal Gear Solid. But this whole prologue, when we don't know what's going on, it's really invigorating. It's exciting.
And it's because he's not going out of his way to explain it, right? There's that mystery. And we know what happens later, obviously, for the folks who've played the game. But I think that, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. The introduction to this game is just incredibly strong and exciting. And this is the part of the game where they do a lot of show, don't tell. And that's what I constantly harp on about. Is what makes really good world building and really good lore building is you show what happens to these characters. You show the impacts and the consequences of the world. And that's what they do a lot here.
Yep. And I just feel like you're pulling two. One, Rick, I love the fact, honestly, that you haven't beaten it yet, because I think you're pulling a lot of strands, pun intended. And and I feel like, hopefully, I can't speak because I know Nick, not to bury the lead there, but he, take it or leave it a lot of the times towards the end for the story.
Leave it.
But I feel like I feel like you'll be rewarded for your presumptions, but kind of your digging as somebody who, not critique, I don't want to go too crazy with it, but you definitely ingest media in a way that is like, okay, let me kind of look ahead and pay attention and not just be on the ride for the roller coaster. I feel like because you're doing that, you're going to be rewarded in the end versus someone else, not particularly not Nick, but just like somebody else who maybe just be like, I don't care what's going on, and this is neat.
Sure.
Sometimes you are looking for stuff that's in there and you're not rewarded because you're like, oh, I expected better or more, etc. But I think you're knocking on some of the right doors right now, and a lot of your questions will be answered.
I do try. I will say, I told you two that I spoiled myself on like the ending. What I spoiled myself on inadvertently, by the way, has nothing to do with any of this, and I genuinely have no idea. Like that spoiler almost means nothing to me because it's so out of context. Yeah, I spoilers aside, I genuinely don't know what's going on. But episode 1 is titled Bridget. We meet the coroner turned doctor, and like I think an actual Frankenstein based on the way his head looks, Kojima's monster, Dead Man, Guillermo del Toro, who is well acquainted with the dead. This begins. Kojima's pissing me off here. He explains what the void out.
A lot more.
Oh, I know, buddy, I know. He explains what the void out is. We're in Central Knot City was wiped out. Wow, I wrote Central Knot City was wiped out. We're in Central Knot City. No, we're not. We're in Capital Knot City, I think is where we are. Dead Man gives us a new job. We're delivering morphine to the president of America. She is dying of cancer. This is like on the hush hush. We're kind of shunted into this without any like say of it. And the realizations start to set in. The president of America, a country which, by the way, kind of doesn't exist as we know it today. 1 is a woman, and 2 is not just any woman. It's the woman that raised you. It's your mom, And we don't know why. Like, Sam has a weird relationship with his mom, not on good terms whatsoever. It seems to be mostly from Sam's side. We don't know, and it is not explained for a while. We just know that Sam really is hesitant about seeing them, but he's kind of pushed into it by Bridges, by Deadman, who works at Bridges, and by another character we're going to meet, Die Hartman, who works at Bridges.
Die Hardman.
I love Die
thank
Hard
you.
Man. Oh,
Not to be
God.
confused with Hartman.
I know, dude. And at some point in here, I wrote Butch Hartman too, like creator of the Fairly Odd Parents. Like, I'm all over the place. But yeah, you know, you're set up with this. I don't know. At this point in the story, are you thinking of anything? Do you know? Or are you having any ideas of where this is going? I certainly didn't.
Yeah, you don't quite know where it's going yet, and even like trying to think back to like 2019 brain playing it, because obviously now I'm like, oh, I can kind of see the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Yeah, no, it very much sets you up to be like, hey, you're dropped into the middle of this. All of these people have these relationships before you, and it's really kind of dragging it out for you to like learn how they're all connected, who's really meeting for the first time, who already knows each other. We already know Sam's reputation precedes him as the man who delivers. So it's really kind of getting caught up on your own as the player into this world.
Yeah, I for this part of the game, again, it's been a minute since I actually like was here, so this is really refreshing my memory. But going back and thinking of where we're at right now, I'm still like really interested in the world building and the story and that Kojima is laying out. I'm like truly very much interested in kind of piecing all of the different esoteric parts together, learning about who this strange man is that came to us right before the Void Out, learning about like what is this weird relationship that I have with that Sam has with Bridget Strand and everything that's going on in this weird post-apocalyptic America. Why is a man with a Frankenstein scar talking to me? It's interesting at the very least, and I'm curious at this point what's going to happen.
Speaking of that strained relationship, we do take the morphine to Bridget Strand. Sam does not want to be there. You know, she's on her deathbed, basically. She is in chemotherapy, it looks like. And she's kind of giving you her last words. Sam believes America is finished. She doesn't. She wants to rebuild. And she begs you to go west. And she says she wanted you to go instead of Amelie. Amelie perks Sam's ears up right away. He's Amelie. You don't know anything about her yet. But in her final moments, she sort of begs you to go, and she pulls herself off of the hospital equipment, and the two of you tumble to the floor. She says she loves you, and she dies on the spot. What is so interesting about the way this scene is shot, so fascinating. It is terrifying and uncomfortable and weirdly sexual. First of all, it's very clear that Sam is associating her with the BTs, like she's crawling toward him and leaving these black handprints that the BTs leave. But, and he's terrified. And she pushes you against the wall, or you push yourself against the wall, and she drapes herself on you with her hand on your chest. And it has this like Greek sexuality to it, like sexualizing the mother, you know, thinking of Oedipus. And it's so overt that I cannot believe this is an accident. I just have no idea what the hell could be going on with this and why this is so sexual and uncomfortable. The way that she is positioning herself on her son, presumably, I just don't know. It's dramatic. It's effective. I like it. It's just, there's got to be something to what's going on here.
Like, it's clear there's a much stronger connection than, you know, what you would think of as a mother and a son.
Yeah.
So that is, of course, something that as the game continues, you kind of see more and it pulls itself out. But yes, I agree with you there as far as some of the overt nature. I didn't quite get sexual, but I can definitely understand like sensual. Like I mentioned, there's more of a connection there than just like, this is my son. And want to not get into too many spoilers, like yeah, it gets explained fairly late into the game, but it all rolls out really, really quickly in those last couple of chapters.
I didn't mean like HBO sexual. I meant like, you know, like
for sure, yeah.
You know, you look at like the Greek god myths, you know, where everybody is fornicating with everybody, mothers, brothers, sisters, cousins, you know, and that kind of sexual, like, you know, hand on the chest, like gazing up into the eyes, you know, that sort of like classical sexual tension. I don't know. Look at me. Do you think I know anything about this?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting imagery. Also, it's curious, the imagery of dead man wearing this like red jacket as well. Leading up to this point, he's almost dressed up like I mean, throughout the game, largely he is dealing a lot with the medical being a medical practitioner both to Sam, but at several points in the game, BB as well. And the fact that he's there and kind of present and administering like this process with the both of them, it is very interesting. I can see what you're saying though a little bit closer with how it's the fear of the BTs is being combined with this idea, the presence of like Bridges Strand, and the fact that he is like strangely like he is almost repulsed by her in a way. And there's this like very weird physical contact, and this is something that we're going to go back around to later. It's not necessarily simply a repulsion to Bridget herself specifically. It's a repulsion that Sam has with all people. He can't be touched. He has an allergic reaction to being touched by another human, which kind of combines in with the themes of what this game is, this feeling of isolation, this feeling of disconnectedness. And another thing that feeds into Sam's presence at this point in the game, the fact that he does not believe that America should be reconnected through the chiral network. He thinks it's a bad idea. But yeah, it's like this combination of all of these things coming in at once. And of course, we see Die Hardman coming in later at the end of the scene to manage Bridget Strand, and you can tell that he is a very imposing presence overall as to what's happening.
Yeah, Die Hardman, these names. He is a man that's wearing a suit. Like, he looks like a government official that is wearing a skull faceplate with like a hinged jaw. You
know what's funny is that most listeners don't know this. He's actually one of the two characters from Army of Two. You just don't know that.
If that's a joke, it went over my head. I don't get it.
It was terrible. It was terrible. They wear like masks on their face when they're going. They're like two like fucking bro dudes. But it's not. They're both white. It's not even.
Is
close.
Army of Two a movie?
It's a it's a 360 game. It's like the first cover shooter after Gears of War that's like the most fucking bro dude ripping like shields off of cars and like shooting rocket launchers. It's incredible. It's actually an amazing game. So sorry, tangent.
No worries. But he's got that on, and it's just never explained or pointed out. I know at some point, mild spoilers. I know at some point in the game it comes off. I just don't know why it's there. I'm sure it'll be explained, but he's no nonsense. He's kind of keeping you in line. He's like, we're carrying on Bridget's legacy. We're going to rebuild America. Public doesn't need to know. We need to get her cremated because, she's going to necrotize. Public's not going to know. We're going to keep things running because, America needs to be rebuilt. And guess what, buddy? Corpse disposal died in the void out. Guess that leaves you. You're already on the clock, which is a quote. I love being chastised for capital in my leisure time.
Thank you, Sam.
But now we take, this is a very striking part of the game too, where we carry our dead mother's corpse on our back as cargo to the incinerator, and it is a long hike. It's really striking imagery.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat.
And like, think about what it means, right? The death of the mother, right? The death of fertility, the death of that which raised you, presumably.
It kind of pisses me off.
You having to carry that burden.
Yeah, I will say that it pisses me off that we know there are other porters in this world, but we don't literally have anybody else to do this job except for Sam Porter fucking Bridges, the president's son, last surviving, assumed survived child.
Hey, listen.
Not that this is like...
we at Bridges here, we're a family on this team, all right? You got to take one for the team.
Listen, we didn't approve any PTO. We're going to need you to kind of put your feelings to the side and come through for us.
We'll give you a nice hat.
You just got to remember, Nick, Sam Porter Bridges, he's the man who delivers. That's like needing to put together a 3v3 basketball team. You got one spot left, and it's like, all right, do we put in Michael Jordan, or do we just pick up some guy off the street because, oh no, this is Michael Jordan's dad's on the other team? It's like, no, you put in the best you got, and you take the president's body up to the top of a damn mountain, and you burn her. You burn her.
You do, and credit where it's due. Again, like, I think the writing is quite bad in this game, but this scene is shot very well. It's so eerie that it becomes peaceful. And it's clear, like, we don't get a look into Sam's psyche here. We can only infer, and I'm sure a replay of this would give so many revelations, but he is clearly struggling with this in some way, burning his mother, putting her in the incinerator. But he has to. Otherwise, she will necro, turn into a BT, potentially cause a void out. And speaking of BTs, this is our first like BT battlefield. They do come down here. You got to get out of there. This is where they start grabbing you from the ground. Again, striking imagery, just kind of tough to play through. What I did, they give you 3 routes. They're like, this one's dangerous. This one's medium. This one just goes around, but it's so long. Hardman says, choose a route or don't, just get back here because you're in serious danger. I straight up sprint through the battlefield, shaking off demons. They try to pull me to hell. I say, no. I get to an incline. I Skyrim up the mountain and just kind of jump down the mountain in a way that I'm sure I'm not supposed to, in a way that cheats physics. And I get away from the BTs and I just walk back. I don't know. It was very funny to me. That's kind of my theme through this game is I just go. I don't choose routes, man. I go.
Mm-hmm. You get to forge your own path. And that's the important part. And the best part, too, is whenever you're going through like the back and forth and maybe hitting the same spots, you can even see like your footsteps. Whereas the last time you went through a path, you're like, okay, last time I came through here, that sucked. Let me try a different way. Or, hey, look, I got a well-worn path, so I can kind of continue to traverse that same go and go and go. I don't know. It all feeds in together well.
I agree. I think that's really cool. Whenever I notice the footsteps, I think that's a really cool touch. Again, I do kind of agree with Nick that the visual language gets a little bit cluttered, especially, when you scan and you get to see the terrain marked as like red, yellow, or blue, depending on how dangerous to safe it is, respectively. It is a lot to be looking at, but I think the footprints are pretty cool. We're going to finish up this chapter. There's literally one scene. We'll come back to it, but I want to make sure that when we do that scene, we talk about the BB. We're going to pick up that next time in episode 2, as we get into episode 2. So moving forward, we might have to seriously compress how we talk about this game, which is fine. Like I said, like that might be how this show moves forward anyway. I don't know. But there's just so much more to this story. My understanding is there are like some teen chapters to this.
14,
we've got a lot to go. And I definitely want to talk about the game. There's also a lot of time spent delivering that really doesn't need to be talked about, because it's the specialness, the point of it is to be in it, and it's tough to replicate that in an audio medium. But we'll do our best, listeners. You can trust us. If you don't trust me, at least trust Nick, And if you can't trust Nick,
That's right.
You got Will. How are you not going to trust Will?
Easy.
Willie. We're going to do our best to get through the rest of the story. Episode 2, episode 3. We're going to talk through it. I'm looking forward to it. I have no idea where this story is going. I have some mild predictions of themes and routes and arcs, but it's so up in the air right now that I kind of am just going back to what you said, Will. I just want to trust, I don't want to think. I want to just be in the moment and let Kojima take me on the ride that he wants to take me on. To that end, I want to thank both of you for joining me. This has been great. I'm really happy that you two joined me for this. It's clear that you both have strong feelings on this game. Mostly positive, even though Nick, I know a lot of this frustrates you, but it does sound like you like this game overall. And it's gonna be he's kind of shrugging, but I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. Now, speaking of listeners, I've got to thank you for sticking around. Again, if this is your first time here, I hope you love the show today. Check out the back catalog as you wait for more Death Stranding, or binge it if you're in the future. For now, I would love for the two of you to talk a little bit about Friday Night Gamecast. a little bit about who you two are, what you do on the show, and if you have any suggestions for a first episode that folks can listen to, first timers, that'd be cool too. So tell us a little bit about Friday Night Gamecast.
Will, I did this last time. Do you want to run with this?
Friday Night Gamecast. So Friday Night Gamecast here. You got Nick and Will. We are two podcasters that talk about games in their fullest, whether it be upcoming/new game reviews. We get a little frisky when we talk about, different game lists. We could have the occasional news. So we're kind of the Everyman's Game podcast, but we'd love to have you come and listen. I think the big thing I would say for maybe a first episode, especially if you're hopping in here listening to Rick, we actually just did a recent episode with Mr. Rick here himself talking about Expedition 33, which was a blast of a time. It's a great game and it's a great conversation, so that's where I would tell you all to start.
What about you, Nick? Do you have a suggestion for a first episode?
Honestly, I was going to say the same thing that Will did. If anybody wants to come in and talk about or check out Expedition 33, it's the new hotness. It's the new Game of the Year contender for 2025. But we also have a lot of other really great reviews. We did an incredible review, Will and I, specifically on Space Marine 2, if you like more action-oriented games. We were joined by a mutual friend of the show, Dave Jackson, as well as Sam Haney of No Limits, and we talked about one of my favorite JRPGs of all time, Metaphor Fantasio, and it just really, really incredible games. A lot of our reviews can get a little bit long in the tooth, but if you are here and you're at this point in Rick's episode, I will say that you clearly love long form content, which means that you will love Friday Night Gamecast. So all of that being said, if you want to find us, we are on all podcasting platforms, wherever you catch your podcasts. And if you want to interact with us, we are primarily over on Blue Sky, and that's at FNGC Pod at BSKY something.com. You know what Blue Sky is.
Yeah. I never did update my profile. Like some folks have person A.fun or, Willie dot shakalaka. I don't know.
No kid.
How'd you know? How'd you know that's what I used?
Yeah, you can find links to their stuff in the episode description. I had no idea that Metaphor was one of your favorite JRPGs. That's fascinating. The Expedition 33 episode was really, really cool. We got into a lot of good conversations. Nick took phenomenal notes for that one that really helped guide the conversation forward. That's a great one to start out with, but there's plenty in the catalog to check out. You can find links to that in the episode description. In the episode description as well, you can find links to both the stuff that I mentioned as we went through development, that Japanese National Parks article about the bokeh, which is pretty cool. You can also find links to Pixel Project Radio's stuff, the social media presence like Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. You can find links to the Patreon if you like the show and want to show your support. You can do that. Patreon gets you some special content as well. Mortal Kombat 95, Stellar Blade, Donkey Kong 94, lots of stuff there. As always, ratings and reviews are really appreciated on wherever you like to leave those. I generally see them. If you're leaving comments on Spotify, which I just realized is a thing, I don't check for those very often. In fact, I just learned about them not too long ago. So I've seen a couple, know that I am reading them, but if you comment on something from 2023, unless you tell me, I probably won't see it. But I can tell you for sure, if you leave a review or a rating on Apple Podcasts or Podcast Addict, that's what I will see. So if you want to do that, feel free. Once again, thank you for listening. Once again, thank you, Nick and Will, for joining me. This has been great. Looking forward to more discussions on Death Stranding. I am your host, as always. I'm Rick Podman, and we're signing off for today. I'll catch you next time. Take care.